That morning, John Wayne arrived on set looking different than everyone remembered. By afternoon, when he fell to his knees in the dust, what he left behind wasn't a script. The Shootist. 1976. A soundstage made to look like 1901 Carson City, Nevada. John Wayne's final film. Everyone knew it, though no one said it out loud. Cancer had been eating at him for years. First surgery in '64, the lung they'd taken, the cigarettes he'd smoked for 40 years coming back with interest. He was 69 years old. He moved slower now. The confident stride that had carried him through nearly 200 films had become careful, deliberate. Each step measured. Each breath counted. The crew had worked with Duke for decades. Stunt coordinators who'd doubled for him when he was invincible. Cameramen who'd framed that iconic silhouette against Monument Valley sunsets. Script supervisors who'd watched him turn mediocre lines into mythology through sheer presence. They all saw it that morning when he walked onto set. Something was different. Not just tired. Not just sick. Something else. Something final. Wayne wore his costume, the dark suit of J.B. Books, the aging gunfighter dying of cancer. Art imitating life, imitating art. He carried himself the way Books would, upright, dignified, refusing to acknowledge the pain everyone could see in the tightness around his eyes. Director Don Siegel called for the first setup. A simple scene. Books walking down the main street. No dialogue. Just presence. Just John Wayne being John Wayne one more time. Quiet on set. Wayne positioned himself at his mark. The makeup artist started to approach. There was sweat on his brow already, and they hadn't even begun, but Wayne waved her off with a small gesture. Not unkind. Just leave me be. Roll camera. Speed. Action. Wayne took one step forward. Then another. On the third step, his right knee buckled. Not dramatically. Not like a stunt. Just gave out. The way a structure fails when the foundation can no longer bear the weight. He caught himself with one hand against a wooden post. Stood there for a moment, breathing hard, head down. Cut, Siegel said quietly. No one moved. 30 crew members frozen in place, watching John Wayne hold himself upright through sheer will. Wayne didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. After a long moment, Wayne straightened up. Looked at Siegel. Again. Duke, maybe we should. Again. They reset. Wayne walked back to his starting mark. The script supervisor noticed his hand trembling as he adjusted his jacket. The key grip saw him close his eyes briefly, lips moving in what might have been prayer or might have been profanity. Roll camera. Speed. Action. Wayne took one step. 2. 3. 4. On the fifth step, his knees buckled again. This time both of them. This time he went down. He caught himself on his hands before his face hit the dirt. Stayed there on all fours for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then slowly, painfully, lowered himself to a kneeling position. His cowboy hat, the one he'd worn in film after film, the one that had become as much a part of the iconography as his voice, fell from his head and landed in the dust beside him. No one called cut. No one moved. John Wayne knelt in the dirt on a Hollywood soundstage dressed as a dying gunfighter, and everyone watching understood they were witnessing something that transcended film. This wasn't performance anymore. This was a man confronting the truth his body could no longer hide. The assistant director started to step forward. Siegel stopped him with a hand on his arm. Not yet. Let him have this moment. Let him decide what comes next. Wayne's head was down. His shoulders rose and fell with heavy breaths. One hand pressed against his chest, not dramatic clutching, just holding. As if he could keep everything inside from spilling out through will alone. Behind the cameras, a young production assistant named Michael Chin stood watching. He was 23 years old, fresh out of film school, and he'd grown up on John Wayne movies. The Duke had been a constant in his childhood, Saturday afternoons watching The Searchers, Rio Bravo, true grit. Larger than life. Invincible. Watching Wayne kneel in the dust, watching the hat fall, watching the legend become human. Michael's eyes filled with tears he didn't understand. Grief for something that hadn't died yet but was dying. For the end of an era happening in real time. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what John Wayne carried onto that set that morning. Not in his hands. In his chest. In the space where other men keep their hearts. Guilt. 43 years of it. Since 1943, when the war started and John Wayne didn't go. He was 36 years old when Pearl Harbor happened. Married with 4 kids. His career was just taking off. Stagecoach had made him a star in 39, and the studios needed him making movies, not carrying a rifle. He'd applied for an officer's commission. Got deferred. Applied again. Got deferred again. The war ended. The boys came home. James Stewart came home a decorated bomber pilot. Clark Gable came home after flying combat missions. Henry Fonda served in the Navy. Even directors like John Ford and Frank Capra had put on uniforms and gone to war. John Wayne had made movies about brave soldiers while real soldiers died. He never forgave himself for it. For 40 years, he compensated. Made war films with a reverence that bordered on obsession. Visited veteran hospitals quietly, without press. Learned the names of the men missing limbs and the ones who woke up screaming. Sent money to widows. Showed up at funerals for men he'd never met, but whose service he honored with presence. He played heroes because he didn't feel like one. He played soldiers because he'd never been one. He played men of courage because he questioned his own. And now, at the end, playing J.B. Brooks, a man facing death with dignity, trying to control the narrative of his own end. Wayne was living out the question that had haunted him for decades. What does a man leave behind when he goes? What matters in the final accounting? Away from the cameras, Wayne made a choice no one expected. Wayne remained kneeling in the dust for perhaps 30 seconds. Then he looked up. Not at Siegel. Not at the crew. At Michael Chin, the young production assistant standing behind the camera with tears on his face. Their eyes met. Wayne's voice, when it came, was quiet but carried across the silent soundstage. Son! Come here! Michael froze. Everyone looked at him. He pointed at himself, me, and Wayne nodded once. Michael walked forward on shaking legs. Stopped 3 feet from where John Wayne knelt in the dirt. Closer, Wayne said. Michael knelt down. I level now with the Duke. Wayne studied his face. You're what? 22? 23? 23, sir. You serve? No, sir. I was too young for Vietnam. Just missed it. Wayne nodded slowly. You know what this film is about. A gunfighter dying of cancer. Trying to die on his own terms. No, Wayne said quietly. It's about a man trying to figure out what his life meant. Whether any of it mattered. Whether he did enough good to balance the bad. He paused. You understand the difference? I think so, sir. Wayne reached into his jacket pocket, the movement obviously painful, and pulled out a small object. A military challenge coin. Bronze. Old. Worn smooth on the edges from years of being carried. A Marine gave this to me in 1968, Wayne said. Walter Reed Hospital. He'd lost both legs in Khe Sanh. 20 years old. I was visiting, doing the rounds, shaking hands. Trying to make up for not being there when it mattered. His jaw tightened. I told him I wished I'd served. You know what he said to me? Michael shook his head. He said, Mr. Wayne, you gave me something to be when I came home. Every movie you made about soldiers, you showed us we could be brave. You showed us what to reach for. Then he gave me this coin. Said keep it. Said it belonged to men who inspired courage, whether they wore a uniform or not. Wayne held out the coin. I want you to have it. Sir, I can't. You can. You will. Wayne's voice was firm now, carrying that authority that had commanded screens for 40 years. Because I need you to understand something. I'm not going to finish this film. I know it. Siegel knows it. Everyone here knows it, even if they won't say it. The soundstage was absolutely silent. Even the ambient noise of Hollywood outside seemed to have stopped. But you, Wayne continued, you're going to make films. I can see it in how you watch. How you stand. You're going to tell stories. And when you do, I need you to remember what that Marine taught me. Courage isn't about where you were. It's about what you gave people. What you helped them become. He pressed the coin into Michael's hand. Closed the young man's fingers around it. Make things that matter. Not because they're perfect. Not because you're perfect. But because people need stories that remind them who they can be. Wayne's hand was still gripping Michael's. Shaking slightly. Not from weakness, from intensity. From the urgency of a man running out of time to say the things that matter. Promise me, Wayne said. Michael's voice cracked. I promise. Wayne held his gaze for one more moment. Then nodded. Released his hand. Looked at Siegel. Don, I think we're done for today. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. Two production assistants helped Wayne to his feet. He didn't resist their help this time. Accepted it with quiet dignity. Let them support him as he walked off the set, each step careful, measured. As he passed the camera, he stopped. Reached down. Picked up his fallen hat from the dust. Looked at it for a long moment. All those years, all those films, all those heroes compressed into sweat-stained felt. He didn't put it back on. Just carried it. The symbol no longer needed. At the edge of the soundstage, he turned back. Looked at the set. The wooden buildings. The dusty street. The cameras. The lights. The crew standing in respectful silence. Thank you, he said quietly. To all of them. To none of them. To the 40 years of making magic in the desert. To the life he'd lived in front of cameras. To the end he was trying to meet with grace. Then John Wayne walked off his last film set, carrying his hat in his hand, leaving behind a young man holding a military challenge coin and a promise. He never returned to finish the Shootist. Don Siegel used a double for the remaining scenes, shot carefully to hide the substitution. The film was completed. Released. Became Wayne's epitaph. The aging gunfighter choosing how to die, refusing to let cancer take him quietly in a bed. Art and life merged completely in the final frames. 3 years later, in June 1979, John Wayne died. The cancer he'd fought for 15 years finally won. He was 72 years old. His last words, according to his daughter, were simple. Of course I know who you are. You're my girl. I love you. No grand speeches. No cinematic last stand. Just a father loving his daughter. A man, not a myth. Michael Chin kept the challenge coin. For 45 years now, he's carried it. He became exactly what Wayne saw in him that day, a filmmaker. Not famous. Not legendary. But someone who makes things that matter. Stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary choices. Films about dignity, courage, and the quiet heroism of doing right when it costs you something. Every time he starts a new project, Michael holds that bronze coin. Rubs the worn edges smooth from Wayne's decades of carrying it. Remembers a man on his knees in the dust, refusing to pretend anymore, choosing in his final moment on set to pass something forward instead of holding onto the mask. The coin sits on Michael's desk now. Beside it, a photograph he found years later in the Paramount archives. John Wayne kneeling on the set of The Shootist, hat in the dust beside him, looking up at someone outside the frame. Looking at Michael. The moment frozen forever. When young filmmakers visit his office and ask about the coin, Michael tells them the same thing Wayne told him. Courage isn't about where you were. It's about what you gave people. What you helped them become. The Duke never wore a uniform in combat. Never stormed a beach. Never earned that guilt he carried for 40 years. But that Marine was right. Wayne gave them something to be when they came home. Gave them an image of strength tempered with decency. Showed them that real men could be gentle with children, kind to horses, protective of the weak, and still be unbreakable when it mattered. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. John Wayne left behind more than films. He left behind a challenge coin, a promise kept, and the lesson that what you leave matters more than what you take. His hat stayed in the dust that day. But his legacy walked off that set in the pocket of a young man who would spend the next 45 years proving that the Duke's final gift, his final scene, wasn't a performance at all. It was a passing of the torch. Quiet. Unscripted. Real. The way John Wayne always said it should be.